Hello and welcome to our next video in making your interactive notebook. Today we are going to add pages 2 and 3. So open up to the table of contents and grab your pencil or pen. And today's topic is rounding decimals. And we are going to put this on pages 2 and 3. Okay? So rounding decimals is what we're going to do today, and we're working on pages 2 and 3. So here was page 1 that we did the other day, and now we're going to go to pages 2 and 3. At the bottom of your notebook, you will see an area for pages. So this on this side is going to be page 2, and on this side is going to be page 3. Okay, so we have 2 sheets today for rounding decimals. The first sheet has 3 parts: the title, steps, and then some examples. You want to cut out all 3 pieces. We're going to cut out here on the solid line going around. Make sure you include your title. You want to keep that. Here we're going to cut on the dotted line. And for this big chunk, we're going to cut down on the dashed line. That's for the page. This is all going to go on page 3. The other sheet I handed out is the second page. And here, you're going to cut on the dashed all the way around. So it's going to be one big piece. We've got some more examples, some things you're going to do on your own. This is going to go on page 2. Remember, all the even numbered pages are pages that you do on your own with some help if you need it. And then all of the odd number pages in your notebook are going to be notes that we do together as a class. So go ahead and cut these things out. And when you're done, on page 3, you're going to have 3 sections. First, rounding decimals is going to go at the top. Next, you're going to have steps to rounding. And then finally, at the bottom, we're having the examples. So let's go ahead and glue that in. And again, little spot at each corner and an X through the middle normally does the trick for gluing. You don't have to cover the whole back, right? Because that uses a lot of glue. So there's my rounding decimals. Next, I'm going to have my steps, and there are 4 steps for rounding decimals that we'll talk about. So there are my steps for rounding. And then here at the bottom, we have some examples. And again, just one big X through the back, and that's enough. It'll keep it on. Okay? That's all on page 3. On page 2, we are just going to paste this. This is the only thing we have to paste. And we're going to paste it a little lower on the page because this side is all taken up. So I'm going to want to put a couple notes here at the top. So I'm going to paste this towards the bottom of the page. Again, you want to make sure that all of your paper that you're gluing in, all of your notes and everything, you don't want anything to go outside the edges because that's when it can get ripped and torn and look yucky. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the lesson. We'll start here. I can zoom in a little bit. Here we go. We'll start here with rounding decimals. So there are 3 things we should be able to do. Round decimals to any place, Reason and explain the answer that you rounded, and then using benchmarks, so 0, half, 1, 1.5 to round. And there are 4 steps to rounding. The first step is circle the digit in the place value that you're rounding to. So this is why it's important to know tenths and hundredths and thousandths and ones and whole numbers and that vocabulary, because if I'm going to circle what I want to round, but yet they give me a word, I need to know which number that word represents. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to underline, should be an E, you're going to underline the digit to the right of the circled number, okay? So if we're rounding to the nearest tenth, we're going to circle the 8, and we're going to underline the 9 is to the right of it. Now, you guys learned something in 5th grade, most of you told me this, that you have a saying. If the underlined digit is 5 or more, it would go up. If it was 4 or less, it would stay the same. All the digits after the circled digit would become a 0. So you guys told me you learned a saying, and we wrote it down. 5 and above, give it a shove. That means you're going to add 1. It's going to go up. It never goes up 2, 3, 4, 5. You just add 1. However, we decided that if it's 4 and below, we let it go. So we got a little rhyming here. Above, shove, below, let it go. Now we're not going to subtract 1. It doesn't mean that that 8 is going to become a 7, right? We're just going to let the 9 and the 2 go away. So before we start on this, we did talk about place value during the lesson. So I want to make sure that we write that in our notebooks because it's important to have. So I gave you some lines. And I asked you place values. So we started, here's your decimal, what's this? And we had a hard time remembering what this is called. So I gave you the option. I said, well, what if I did this? Then what'd you remember? You're like, oh yeah, it's $1. And I said, so what would we call this? These are ones. So we did this, and I said, okay, well, what if I gave you that? And you said, that's $10. And I said, yes, those are what we call tens. And now we got to the harder side, and I said, and I know I'm writing on the notes portion just a little bit here. I said, what if I did that? And you said, well, that's 10 cents. And I said, exactly. We call this tenths. You see that THS? That is the difference. See if I can get this even a little bit closer here for you. That is the difference between tens being like $10 and tenths being like a dime. It's that THS at the end. So if you see a THS, you know, like we do over here in our example, you know they're looking for the number after the decimal. So then the next one was a little trickier. I gave you that. You said, well, that's a penny. And I said, it is. And I asked you, I said, how many pennies make up $1? And you said 100. So that's why we call this hundredths. And then by the time we figured it out, tenths, hundredths, we knew this was thousandths. Someone did ask, are there ever any oneths? No. That's the only one that they don't have in common. So it'd be tens, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, and it could keep going for forever. But ones is unique. It only happens on the left side of the decimal. Okay, so we went over that. I want to make sure you guys saw that. All right, let's get back to our examples. So here we go. We're looking at the bottom of page 3 now. Round to the nearest tenth. So tenth is this one. Remember, ones, tens with a T-E-N-S. Tenth is here, hundredths, thousandths. So if we look here, now they draw their arrow backwards. I like to say this guy is going to be in charge of that guy. So what is that 9 going to do to the 8? Remember, 5 and above, you add 1. Right? We're going to give it a shove up to the next number on the number line. 4 and below, we let go. That means we're not changing it. It doesn't get smaller. It's not a -1. We're just going to let everything go. So this is going to round to 34 point. Very good. That's above a 5, so that's going to be 0.9. Now you could write it with the zeros if you wanted to, and you would still get credit. 34.900. Because we did talk about yesterday, or when we were working with integers, we talked about the fact that zeros at the end of a decimal don't change the value. You can think about it like money. That's $34.90. That's the same thing. You still have 9 dimes, whether you want to add zeros or not. Okay, let's look at the next one. Round to the nearest hundredth. See that? Hundredth. So we have my ones and my tens. Tenths, hundredths. So this guy is going to get circled. And then whatever's behind him, I don't care if there were 15 other numbers, the one directly behind him is what's going to change him. He's in charge. So I like to make my arrow like that. He's in charge. So 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, let it go. My guy that's in charge, is he 5 and above or 4 and below? Right? He's 4 and below, so that means we're just going to make him disappear. So you can have 13.22 is rounding to the nearest hundredth. Or if you want, you can write 13.22 with the 0. So this is, you would read this officially 13 and 22 hundredths. 13 and 220 thousandths. Same thing, no difference in value. 22 pennies, 22 pennies. All right, let's go to page 2. Now this is a little different exercise. And on the previous page over here, they gave us the number that they wanted us to round, and then we had to figure out what it would be when we rounded. Now they are telling us, here's your answer. What kind of numbers are going to round to here? So I asked for you to give me 4 different numbers that could round to 5.4. when we're rounding to the nearest tenth. I'll give you an example. One student thought of, could I do that? Well, absolutely you may do that because, let me get out a different colored pen here. The 3 is your 10 spot. The 9 is behind it. What is that 9 going to do to the 3? Exactly. It's going to make it go up to this 4. So 5.39 rounded to the nearest tenth is 5 4/10, or 5.4. Okay, let's look at another one. I had a student ask, well, can I just write this? Why not? We've already said that if it's a 0 at the end, it doesn't change the value. So yes, those two are just fine. Another student wanted to try this one. Is that okay? Absolutely, that's okay. Again, we're rounding to the 10th, so we circle that. The guy behind it is in charge, and he is less than 5, so we're just going to let him go. And that is 5.4. Now, I had one girl, she got fancy on me. And she said, what if I wanted to do this? Is that okay? Absolutely, because when we are rounding to the 10th, we only look right behind it. This could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? It could keep going for forever. We're only interested in what's right behind it. Does the 3 do anything to the 4? Absolutely not. So that is okay. So I asked for 4 different decimals. I will tell you there are an infinite number of choices that you could do. The key is that it rounds to 5.4. So just make sure that you have 4 options that round to 5.4. The next section, list a number that could be rounded the way shown. So again, they're giving us the answers. We have to come up with a number. And just like above, there are going to be lots of choices. So if I don't list your choice, it doesn't mean that you got it wrong. You just may have thought of a different number, and that's absolutely okay. If you're unsure, if it rounds, come see me and I'll check it for you. All right, so rounded to the nearest tenth. Well, let's see, my 2 isn't going to change because that's in the 1 spot. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth and the nearest hundredth. So we have 2. Well, we can start with the 2.5. That will make my life easy. But then I need to get this to a 5. And if I leave it 5, 5, again, that will, that's going to round up to a 6. So this hundredth needs to start out smaller, and then I need to figure out a bigger number that would make the 4 increase to shove it up. So I know I need a number bigger, 5 or higher. So I'll just go with 6. There we go. It's a little messy, but that's okay. Okay, let's look at the next one. Again, your 1's place isn't changing because we're only rounding to the 10th and the hundredths. So, see if I can get this just a little bit closer for you. That'll work. All right. So I want to have a 3 here, but a 26 for my hundredths, 26 hundredths. Well, that 6 would go ahead and make that 2 into a 3, wouldn't it? Because it would round it up. So I know I can go ahead and put 26, because then my 6 would round my 2 into a 3, and then that's already rounded. So you could put anything 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0 here, and that would keep it the same. So I could go ahead and put a 3 there. That 3 is not going to change the 6, but the 6 will change the 2. And that was easy. Let's look at this last one here. I need it to be 8.1 and then also 8.13. or 13 hundredths. So my 8 can stay. The 3 is not going to do anything to the 1, so again, I could just do that. And as long as I put a number 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0 back here, it's not going to change it. So now when I round, I'm going to use my other color. When I round to the 10th, the 4 is going to make the 5 increase. Or the 4 is not going to make the 5 increase, so it stays 2.5. But the 6 will make the 4 increase so that it becomes 2.55. Does that make sense? The 6 will increase the 2, right? The 6 changes the 2. But the 3 doesn't do anything to the 6. So I've got 4.3 and 4.26. And the last one seems to be the easiest because they don't want anything to round up. So all you need are little numbers. You've got the 3 doesn't do anything to the 1, so we have 8.1. And the 2 doesn't do anything to the 3, so we've got 8.13. Excellent. All right, last little bit. Mark an X on the value of each decimal number when it is rounded to the nearest whole number. So we want to know, so let's look at this, 4.06. Can you see this? Good. A little bit closer so you can really see it. There we go. Okay, so we have 4.06. Is that going to round to a 3 or to a 4? Well, again, it's not going to go down. So if I'm rounding to the nearest whole number, here's what I'm going to circle. And I look at it, it's going to be the 4. If I circle the 3 and underline, oh, look at that, that's a 5. What do we say about 5 and above? Right, this is a +1 kind of problem. So this is actually going to be a 4 as well. And then finally, our last one, again, we have a 3, but behind it is only a 4. So that 4 is not going to do anything. That 4 is going to keep it a 3. So there's your answers. All right. This is everything that we have for our rounding decimals notes. We will continue to work on this in class. We'll have some worksheets and some homework and whatnot that will help us practice what we've learned here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come see me and we'll work on it together. Thanks for watching.